one thing that I've learned in this so far is that everybody's got a story and it's worth sharing. And when we share those stories, it typically comes out in a way to where other people get to take advantage of that and use it and move it into their life, and they find something there that makes a difference for them. And that's what we're wanting to do today. Casey Fowler, welcome to the show, brother.
Nice to see you, brother.
Hey, you too, man. You too. Glad you came in today. It's always fun when we get together. You never know where the conversation may go, and we'll try to stay on course today. But who knows? Who knows? So Casey's a really good friend of mine. I've come to know you 10 years ago, something like that.
Yeah,
something like that. It's been a minute, and anyway, we've shared a lot of life adventures since then, and had a good time. But today's really, man, it's all about you. Like, what got you to where you're at? What made you who you are? And let's start early on. You know, like what was life like early on for you?
Well, buddy, first of all, I was raised in Rossville with two of the best parents that a kid could ask for.
Man,
my parents were very motivated to make sure their kids had everything that they, I was my brother, myself, and my little sister. Jason was my brother, Stacy was my little sister, and my parents, their number one goal was to make sure that we never did without.
yeah,
We always had good, wonderful Christmases, wonderful birthdays.
Yeah.
They sacrificed so much so we could have a childhood, a memorable childhood, and we did. Church was extremely important to my mom and dad. They wanted us to see them together, go to church, as well as us, and in my opinion, I think they were trying to build some sort of a foundation. It seems like whenever you have a foundation, a solid foundation, you can kind of tackle a lot of problems that come your way. And it was extremely important for them to do that. My mother, we would always have our family dinners. We would always sit down together, all five of us, no matter how busy our schedule was. We would always sit down, have our family dinner, and my mom, they were strict as well. We couldn't get up from the dinner table till our plates were clean.
Yeah.
And so sometimes my brother and I, we would scrape our leftovers in my sister's plate so we could go back outside and play. But
that sounds like the Casey Fowler.
Yeah. I mean, we were always outside, but that was,
Yeah.
that was one of their rules. You had to finish what you started, so to speak.
Yeah.
And being held accountable. You had to be held accountable for what you did and what you said. Good.
So they kind of lived that life too. Like, they showed you, like, this is how you live. This is what you do. This is how it works. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Like they literally spent their time raising you guys so that you'd come and be good adults.
Oh, there's no question, buddy. There's no question. I mean, they were always thinking of our well-being first. Like I said, we were held accountable for everything that we did, and if you were in the wrong, you were looking in the mirror, and that was the person to blame, and they made that clear.
Yeah.
Now, if you were in the right, I can't tell you how many times my dad would go to middle school to bat for us if we stood up for something that we thought was right. So the coin works on both ends.
Yeah.
So, but my child, man, if I could be half the parent that my mom and dad were for me, then I've succeeded. I've succeeded in life because I had the perfect roadmap with those two.
Yeah.
Really did.
Like, everything that you've said is what every parent wants their kids to be able to say when they get older. That's what they're looking for. Like, if my kids grow up and they say that about my wife and I, we did our job. how much better could it get? You know, like every parent wants their children to think that and to like truly believe that you did everything you could in your power to raise them correctly.
Oh,
Even though like some things you might not like at the time, you know, discipline, all that kind of stuff that comes along with it. Later on, man, you look back, it's like, yeah, I deserved it. I needed
oh,
it.
absolutely, no
You know,
question,
it
buddy.
needed to happen. And to see that you had parents like that, man, and half parents like that, it's awesome.
Oh,
It's awesome.
I was blessed, buddy. I was
Yeah.
blessed because I know that not every child had that kind of upbringing,
Yeah.
and I was lucky to have two parents like that, you know, and the values and morals that they instilled in us, you know, I still use to this day. And my sister, you know, she, bless her heart, she has to be tough as nails to have two older brothers that we put her
I can
through.
only
We
imagine.
put her through so much, but she is probably one of the toughest people that I know.
Yeah.
She's a principal at Cherokee Ridge Elementary, you know, and she runs that, you know, runs it like a military base over there. She's awesome.
Nice. So elementary school was good. Middle school, high school, anything crazy go on in that time period?
Yeah, buddy. So like I told you, you know, I had an older brother and myself and my sister, and of course my mom and dad. When in middle school, you know, middle school was great until about the 8th grade. We were going to Gulf Shores, Alabama, for a family vacation, and we had a car accident. And I can remember in that we had a little minivan, and I can remember when during the car when our van was flipping, I can remember my back hitting the styrofoam surfboards that we had that we were going to, you know, surf with and go to the beach with, and I can remember that happening, and then I can remember nothing else besides waking up and there being several ambulances and cops and everything around, everybody around. And I remember a smell, like if you've ever been in a car accident, there's a smell like burnt rubber smell, smoky smell, and it just kind of is embedded in my mind, that smell, you know, that day. But we all 5 of us were okay through that accident. We were okay, which was a miracle in itself. If I showed you pictures of the van, you wouldn't believe that people survived. But we all went to the hospital in 5 different ambulances, and I can remember going to the hospital and not knowing if my mom or dad or my brother or my sister were there. And to be honest with you, buddy, I was probably the least scathed of anybody. I had a cut on my shoulder, a couple of bruises. You know, my dad, I remember my dad, he had both of his hands cut. My mom and sister, you know, they had some bumps and bruises as well, but in all, we were pretty much okay. But my brother, you know, he had a big cut on his arm that they could not get to stop bleeding. And, you know, they were trying to sew it up, but it just continued and continued to bleed, would not clot, which kind of raised a red flag. And so that led to testing. You know, what is going on? Why won't his blood clot? What is happening here? And through testing and testing and testing, they found out that he had what they called aplastic anemia, which is a blood disease. And, you know, he was his energy level was really low. It was hard for him to breathe sometimes, was kind of the side effects of that. And had we not had that accident, we wouldn't have known that he was sick. Wow. So if you look back on it, the accident was probably a blessing. You know, it gave us more time with him, you know,
I'm sure
in the long run.
Yeah.
But so he had aplastic anemia, and then so they tried several things to remedy that, and nothing was working. Nothing that they tried was working. So they come to the decision that they needed to do a bone marrow transplant. And so, you know, 9 times out of 10, when you do a bone marrow transplant, your siblings are the most likelihood to be a match. And so myself and my sister were tested,
Yeah.
and I was the lucky winner. You know, I was a perfect match for my brother to do a bone marrow transplant,
Wow.
and which was a blessing in itself there too.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
that was an answered prayer. But so we did the bone marrow transplant. You know, time has gone by, so there's, you know, I was in eighth grade when this happened. When the bone marrow transplant took place, I believe I was a sophomore in high school.
Gotcha.
So there was a couple of years in between there where the testing and just trying to figure out what was going on.
That's not a real easy process, I wouldn't imagine.
No, it's the not knowing.
Yeah.
The not knowing is almost the worst.
Yeah.
And when we found out I was a perfect match, and you know, the likelihood of success in a bone marrow transplant, I think is pretty high. I don't remember the exact number, but it's pretty high. So we were all we were over the moon.
Yeah.
But we did the bone marrow transplant, and you know, it takes a while for that to set in, but slowly over time, he started to get his energy back. He started to play golf again. He started to kind of live a normal life.
He got to live for a little bit there.
Yeah.
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 Nice.
Yeah. But it was, you know, and that's kind of the first half of the story. But
So he got to where he was doing okay.
oh yeah, buddy. Yeah.
Like it was kind of out of y'all's realm of thinking that he still had an issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, my brother had jet black hair. I mean, he always reminded me of the Karate Kid or Rocky Balboa with the jet black hair.
Yeah.
I mean, and charcoal eyes. I mean, and then his hair came back. When it came back, it was curly, like curly.
Something different for him there, wasn't it?
Yeah, but yeah, he was after immediately afterwards. It was kind of back. Everything was kind of back to normalcy.
Yeah. So he's doing better. You're in high school, and then you make a decision to get into the military.
I do.
And you go Navy, correct?
I went to the Navy. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Tell me about that experience, because I don't know anything about it.
Okay. So my junior summer, I started thinking about, you know, my future. You know, I was thinking, well, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do after high school?
Yeah.
And you know me a little bit, and I was never good at school. You know, only thing I cared about were sports. That was about it. So I knew, I was like, man, I don't want to go to college. I do not want to go to college. And at the same time, I don't want to hang around Rossville, and you know, I would probably find some trouble, or trouble would find me somehow.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, I probably just need to do something. So I got to thinking, and my uncle, my dad's brother, my uncle was a Navy SEAL. And I got to me thinking, man, the Navy might be an option. And then I was a big basketball fan, and so David Robinson was my favorite basketball player, and they called him the Admiral. And so he was in the Navy as well, and so I was like, man, there's two people that I kind of look up to. Why not give the Navy a try?
So it fit.
So it did, buddy. So my junior summer, I enlisted that summer. So my whole senior year, I knew, you know, a month after graduation, I was leaving.
Yeah.
So I graduate high school, and I go to boot camp, and boot camp is, I mean, it was kind of easy other than the lack of sleep, but before I went, you know, you have to have a job in the military, so they give you an ASVAB test, and so for some reason, I still don't know to this day, I scored high on the mechanical side. I am not a mechanical.
You'd have fooled me on that one, Casey.
Yeah.
No,
I am. It's true. I mean, I do good to change oil and change tire, buddy. And I'll be the first to admit it. But yeah, I scored high on the mechanical side of the ASVAB test. So they told me, well, why don't you be an engineman, which is a diesel mechanic in the Navy? We'll send you to engineering school after boot camp, and I think it's like 4 or 6 months, and then when you get stationed, you'll have a job. I was like, shoot, that sounds great to me.
Yeah,
Sure.
right.
So I got through boot camp, went to engineering school, and to this day, how I passed that course, Justin, I honest to goodness do not know, because I mean it was a grind. I mean, I
Really?
can remember, like, I just wanted to pass, and I studied and studied and studied, and I did pass. But in my opinion, that is, you either have that, as far as the mechanically minded person, you either have it or you don't. I do not. I do.
We got to be real sometimes, don't we?
You do, and that's one thing I can. I can look at myself and know you are good at this.
Yeah.
You are not good at that. That's one thing I am good at is knowing what I can and can't do.
You can be realistic there.
Yeah.
So, my goodness. My granddad was in the Navy. And so he passed away when I was like 7 years old. I never got to have any conversations with him as to like what it was like out on the ship, out on open water. I got to hear a story from you. I know you got one or two you can share.
Oh my gosh, buddy. Oh my gosh. Yes. So I get to my ship and realized quickly that, gosh, man, if you got to do this diesel mechanic thing for 4 years, I'm going to be banging my head on the wall. I mean, it just wasn't for me. I just didn't like it. So anyway, luckily, right about that time, each ship has to have search and rescue swimmers. And so my ship was the USS Simpson FFG 56, which is a smaller ship. It's a frigate. And so our ship had carried 2 rescue swimmers. Well, the 2 that we currently had when I got there were moving on. They were going to another duty station.
Okay.
So basically, they posted a tryout in the mess decks where anybody that's interested in trying out to be a rescue swimmer, will send you to school. Come be at this place at this time. The top 2 guys will get sent to school. I was like, man, this might be my way to...
You were willing to jump off a boat and into the water.
I was like, this might be my way to get out of the mechanic stuff, because I don't like it.
Just the fact that you're willing to jump off the boat into the ocean tells me that you really didn't enjoy that.
So I did. I went to that tryout at that time. All the guys that wanted to try it were there. They put us through timed run, time swim, push-up, sit-ups, all that kind of stuff. And the best at 2 accumulative scores, those 2 guys were getting sent. Well, me and another guy got the top 2 scores.
Nice.
So I was like, man, I'm kind of, this is awesome. Yeah. So I went to search and rescue school and made it through there. And then, when I came back, I still was kind of a diesel mechanic, but 50% of the time I was pulled away to train the search and rescue swimmer side, so I could go to the pool and work out and swim and things. So I was loving that. We'd go out to sea and do drills, and I got to jump in the water, and whenever we'd have swim call and just kind of be the lookout, kind of lifeguard, and it was awesome, buddy. It was nice. Awesome. So that was kind of my job. My job was basically split.
Gotcha.
Half the time I was doing that, other half I was just basically suffering through the mechanical side.
Golly. So y'all are out on open waters, patrolling, I guess, or going wherever you may need to be going. Did you ever come across any times that did it get dangerous?
Man, so yes. On our 6-month deployment, as far as actually in battle, no.
Okay.
But when we were on our 6-month deployment, we did what they call a half Gulf, half Mediterranean cruise. And I can remember, I think it was 2000, October of 2000. And so when you go out, you're in what they call a battle group. Okay. So I was in the USS George Washington battle group. And you have 4 or 5 ships in a battle group that all go out together. And so we were out doing our 6-month deployment, and we were scheduled to get refueled. The USS Simpson was scheduled to get refueled in Yemen. And we had a diesel engine go down, uh, which obviously we were kind of dead in the water until that was fixed. Well, the USS Cole took our spot to, to get refueled in Yemen. Well, like I said, it was in October of 2000, a suicide bomber run right into the side of the ship and killed 17 people
On that ship.
on the USS Cole.
Oh my gosh.
And you really don't know how to think when something like that happens. For me, I obviously feel terrible for the lives that were lost and the families that are affected.
Yeah.
But then you think on the other side, I mean, that if this event hadn't happened, that could have been us. That could have been the ship I was on.
Exactly.
So you're grateful on one hand, but you're extremely heartbroken on the other hand.
The loss of life was still there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it really it makes you appreciate things. And I kind of talked about the foundation with my mom and dad and having to rely on something whenever things go south.
Yeah.
That's what helps me in those kinds of situations.
Yeah.
Thinking about that foundation and what I have someone I can rely on.
Yeah.
Not only with my family, but the good Lord.
Yep.
Upstairs. And
exactly.
So that's kind of what helps me personally in those types of things. And it was an awful scenario, but blessed in the same way.
Yeah. Was that the first time that you really felt like, or maybe really understood how much danger there was to what you signed up to do?
It was.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, Justin, most of the time I had a blast.
Right.
95% of the time, I was having a ball. Seeing all these different places around the world.
Yeah.
And with some people that I kind of enjoyed being with. It was 95% of the time it was awesome. And then that happened, and it brings you back to reality. You're here. You're here for a reason.
Yeah.
And but yes, to answer your question, absolutely, that was an eye opener. That things could go south at any second.
Yeah.
And you don't really think about it that way until it happens.
That's right. And then I guess after that, it kind of changed your pattern of how you thought.
It did.
Because you don't know what's coming next. You can go all that time and everything's okay, and then just like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, on a dime, buddy. It can happen on a dime.
Yeah.
When 9/11 happened, that was actually my 21st birthday. I had plans to go out and tear the town up that night with some buddies of mine. And I can remember getting my breakfast that morning. And, military breakfast, by the way, in the Navy, I loved it. A lot of people hate it.
Yeah.
But I could order an omelet and put everything on it that I wanted. Anyway, it was good. I loved it.
That's a good way to start your day.
Yeah,
then, right?
yeah. Now everything else was kind of questionable, but the breakfast was good. But so I got my breakfast that morning and had plans to go out that night. And when I walked to the mess decks, typically there's a lot of chirping. Everybody's talking and it's kind of loud. It was quiet as a church mouse this morning. On September 11th, 2001. And so I sat down and then I started eating, and then I look up and the TV is on and everybody's glued to the television. And I see a building, and then literally the time I look up, I see a plane hit the side. And then at that point, I didn't know what to think. We're obviously watching the news and getting updates with what's going on. But, as far as how it affected me, our base went on to a code red. We were not allowed to make any outgoing phone calls or receive any phone calls. No one could come in or go out of our base for about a week, and there was people that were ready to just leave right then and there and in all out war, or had another side of people that was like just didn't know what to think.
Right.
That was probably me. I didn't know if I was going to be able to get. I was scheduled to get out of the Navy about 10 or 11 months from that point. I didn't know if I was going to be able to get out. I didn't know what the retaliation was going to be. I didn't know anything. And my parents at home, like I said, they had no clue for a week until I could contact them.
Wow.
So, I mean, man, there was a lot of life lessons that were learned in the military, good and bad.
Yeah.
But for me, it seems like no matter what I encounter, I can always reflect back on the way I was raised and find strength in that.
I like that. I like that. Considering all you've been through, I want you to share one more story, and then we'll go move on. But you crazy enough to jump on somebody else's ship? And you told me the story. And you don't have to go through the whole story, but share a little bit about that.
When we were on that deployment, there was ships that would smuggle oil from Iraq, and so on my particular ship, they put together a couple of teams that would establish comms with this ship, and they would let them know, hey, we are boarding. We are going to inspect your ship to see if you have smuggled oil. And if you do, we're going to hold you until the proper authorities can escort you back. And so they had teams that they put together that once they established comms with those ships, those teams would board.
Wow.
They would board the ships. And basically for me, I was on this this Iraqi ship for it seems like it was 4 days, and all we had, we were all in an area where we had MREs, meal ready to eat, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and basically it was like a 5-man team. So,
but like when you board onto that ship, I mean, what's your feeling right then? Like,
what
do you feel when you do that?
I didn't know what to expect, but I did find comfort in it. It wasn't like we were just boarding a ship that was, out of the blue. We established communications with them first, and they knew that they had to comply.
Gotcha.
They knew that before anybody stepped foot on the ship.
Okay.
And so that put my heart at ease a little bit. But still, sometimes
I don't care though,
really
man. You're out, like, at the end of the day, you're out in the middle of nowhere, right?
Yeah. It was
with
in the
nothing
Gulf.
around you.
Yeah.
And you're stepping foot on their ship.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. But,
I mean, you're the right guy for the job. I'm not saying that. You fit the bill.
It was, to be honest with you, after we got there and we would take turns, would walk the ship, several laps. Each person would take a turn for like an hour. You'd be on watch for an hour.
Okay.
And we had all the crew that was on the ship. They would all be in another designated area. They could not leave that designated area. And I can remember, we would go by and inspect everything, and then you would walk by where those guys were. And man, you would think it would be kind of a tense, kind of nervous, but they were listening to Michael Jackson and Beat It. All that old 80s stuff like Michael Jackson, Thriller.
That's what they're playing on the ship.
Duran. I mean, all kinds of old 80s stuff. And I was like, this is kind of neat.
Maybe they're not so bad. How many days were you on that ship?
I think it was like 4 or 5 days.
Gotcha.
We were there.
Okay.
And then, like I said, they would get escorted back, and then we would get off and then go back to work.
Oh my gosh. All right. So.
But
you're willing to do anything. You learned a lot in the military, I know you did. But that has to come to an end.
Yes.
And it does. And you get back home. And what kind of transition do you have from living like that out on the ocean with a bunch of guys to coming into the Casey and where he grew up at?
Man, for me, I wanted to leave, and I thought the grass is going to be greener
Yeah.
And I'm glad I needed to leave, and I think it was a good thing that I did. But it made me appreciate where I'm from.
Gotcha.
It made me appreciate the people that I have in my life. It really, I mean, it's kind of an eye opener. And for me, the grass is not greener. Like Walker County, Georgia, for me is home,
Yeah.
and it'll always be home. You know, because that's where my people are.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I was. I wanted to get out and go home.
So it was a good transition for you. Like you were ready.
So I was ready to get out and get home and move on with the next chapter of my life. So I did. I think I got out in May of 2002. Yeah, May of 2002.
Okay.
I got out. And then, like I said, we've talked about my brother. And while I was gone, those 4 years, my brother, he developed what they call graft versus host. And it's a disease that sets up in your lungs. And I got out in May, and I went home, lived at my mom and dad's house for a little while. And my brother was at that point in time, he was pretty much bed bound. He could. It was.
So when you came home, that was the situation you came home to?
Yeah. He was suffering.
Yeah.
But I can remember coming home and going to his room, and he and I having conversations, and I can remember him. He always was upbeat about I don't ever remember him complaining. You're talking about at that point in time he's 24 and pretty much bedridden, and he was not no complaints. And my brother, I'll tell you this about him. So he was a big golfer, and I asked him. I was like, Jason, do you want to go? Do you want to go golfing? It's like you can ride on the golf cart. You can just watch me play. And you can tell me what I'm doing right and doing wrong. And so he's like, yeah, and I had to push him in the wheelchair, and he had his oxygen on. And we got to the golf course, and I got him in the golf cart, and we get to the first hole, and I tee off, and it's a terrible drive. It's like 300 yards the wrong direction. And my brother, he's like, Casey, sit down and just watch. And I got the tee. I set the tee up for him. I set it up for him, and I help him get in position to hit his shot. And he gets set up, and I step back, and that sucker hits at 300 yards right down the fairway.
No way.
Right down the fairway.
He knew he was going to do it before he ever got up there.
Yes, he did. Right down the fairway.
It gave me chill bumps, man.
And it's just kind of how he was. He didn't complain. Everything that came his way, he just took it in stride. And that was just that blew me away. If you knew how hard it was for him to just get up, much less swing a golf club. And I saw that, and any problems I had, in comparison to what he was going through.
Yeah. Kind of sets the tone for the rest of your life, I guess.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It does, buddy. It really does. But so this was shortly after I got out. My brother ended up passing away in June of 2002. And now that I look back on it, it was a blessing. It was a blessing. He was suffering, and I struggled. I really struggled with the way, he was struggling to breathe. He ended up losing his eyesight. He couldn't see, and he was really struggling. And he passed away, and I struggled with those issues. Like, why, if you're going to take them anyway, why make it that hard at the end? Why?
Yeah.
And I always was asking why. Always was asking why. I was mad all the time. All the time after my brother passed, I was mad. I could not find any peace. I couldn't find it. My mom and my dad and my sister, to be honest with you, I don't know how they dealt with it. We've never talked about it.
Really?
I don't know how my mom and dad dealt with it, and I don't know how my sister dealt with it. All I know is how I dealt with it.
Yeah.
And I know I was struggling. And I can remember being so mad, Justin. I can remember being so mad that there was one day I prayed and I said, Lord, can you just please give me some sort of sign that my brother's okay, that he's breathing, he's running, and he's smiling. Just some sort of sign. I feel like if I know that he's okay, then I can kind of move on. If I know that, can you please give me a sign? I prayed that. And I can remember that night I had a dream. And I haven't told, my parents know this dream. I think those are the only people I've ever told this to. But I had a dream that I'm standing in a field with the tall wavy grass and the wind's blowing. I'm standing in this field, a wide open field, and the grass is blowing like this. And I'm standing there just looking around, and there's a sense of peace and calm that I can't even describe. And I look in the distance, probably I seem to be maybe 70 yards away. There's kind of a shadowy figure walking this way. And he, as he gets closer, he gets about, I don't know, maybe 30 yards from me, 20 yards. And it's my brother. It's my brother standing there. He don't say nothing. I don't say nothing. We just standing there looking at each other. And it's my healthy brother, the brother that I knew that was healthy. It's a football. He has a football in his hand. He throws me the football. I catch it, and I throw it back. And it seemed like we just sat there and passed 20, 30 minutes. It felt that way.
Wow.
And I woke up the next morning, and, when you lose somebody, you never get over it. There's always that hole in your heart. It's always going to be there. But that next morning, I felt like I could breathe.
Yeah.
And I felt like I could move forward some way. Before that, I was stuck. I wasn't moving. But after that, once I felt I had that peace about him, that I could move. And all I attributed this to, I thank the good Lord for giving me that dream, giving me that peace.
Isn't that crazy how that happens?
Yeah.
Like, the dream was reality to you.
It was, buddy. It was real.
And it brought something you'd been chasing, trying to find peace with that. Good Lord works in some crazy ways, man.
Man, I'm
crazy ways. But we got to be willing to accept that and know it. And you asked for it and you received it.
Yeah.
And ever since then, you've continued to have that peace.
I have.
Yeah.
Like I say, it's always painful.
Yeah.
But I think that if you can move forward, if you can keep moving forward and not get stuck,
Yeah.
that's the blessing.
Yeah.
For me.
No doubt.
And moving forward. But yeah, man, I mean, it was that changed my whole outlook.
Yeah.
On that.
I wish that. So I want to move forward a little bit as to like what you do today and your family and things like that. And I wish that he was here to see what you are. You're a really good person. And tell me about who you are today.
So, let me start with this. So after that happened, after my brother passed. I worked several odd jobs and had a friend of mine that was an x-ray tech, Daniel Ray, and he was doing a residency at Memorial Hospital. And he said, I talked to him, I was like, man, I'm just struggling here. I'm working here, I'm working there, I'm working here, I'm working there. I said, you know anybody that's hiring? He's like, man, come with me to Memorial. Come with me to Memorial. They've got a transportation job, and there's a lot of hot girls.
You came with him to Memorial, didn't you?
So I said, man, that's all you had to tell me, brother. I was like,
You didn't even care what it paid, did you?
I didn't even ask. And so, yeah. And so I met he said, man, meet me at Memorial. I'll walk you to the transportation
I can go from laughing to crying with you.
But so we met, man. We met at Memorial, and he's like, "Just follow me. We'll go to the transportation department." And so we're waiting to get on the elevator, and the elevator doors open up, and I see a girl. She's pushing an old person in a wheelchair. I see a girl pushing an old person in a wheelchair, and you know how people say that, you get love struck. People that get struck by lightning and love, and their firecrackers and everything go off. That actually is real. Like, I saw this.
You experienced that.
I'm telling you, son. I'm telling you. I saw this girl. I didn't know her name. I didn't know anything about her. I just know what I saw. I was like, I ain't never seen a girl like that in my life. And I was starstruck. As she's walking by me, I said, Daniel, I'm going to marry that girl one day. And she walks by, and she looks at me like I'm an idiot, which I was.
Yeah. You're married to her.
I'm married to her now. 3 kids later, I'm married to her now. But I'm telling you, man, it was ups and downs and lefts and rights
and you found the right person for you, and you found a family out of it.
Oh man, I mean,
who would have thought?
Not me.
Who would have thought?
Not me, buddy. Not me. I mean,
you're just trying to find a job.
I was just trying to find a job, and I got a lot more than I bargained for, man.
That's a neat story, though. Like, it's pretty neat because you weren't planning on going there at all. It's just your buddy trying to help you get a job.
Yeah. I mean, I'm telling you, buddy, Cupid shot me twice.
Yeah, boy.
I mean, he hit me hard right there, and and it wasn't immediate. I mean, I had to slowly, throughout that, 9 or 10 months, I had to slowly, work my way and finally got a date.
Yeah.
And, once I got the date, I didn't let go.
Isn't that something? Good Lord. But even today, y'all been married how long now?
20 years in June.
And you're still in love with each other.
Oh, man, yes.
I mean, what does that show for your children? The very thing that you're saying about your parents is what you're doing for your kids right now.
I agree, but I think it's a positive cycle.
Yeah.
If you see your parents doing right all the time and constantly are trying to do the best they can, stands to reason that you will try to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And like I said, money, if I can do half the job my parents did for me, for my kids, I've succeeded.
Yeah. I
really have. And I hope, I've got a 21-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a 13-year-old.
Yeah.
And I hope that, they can see, the love that their mother and I have for each other, and that we all try to go to church together, every Sunday. That's important to us. My wife's daddy made sure when I asked him if I could marry his daughter, he said, as long as you have your family in church every Sunday. And so that's what I've tried to do.
That's good.
And I think that's a good place to build a foundation on.
It is. No doubt. No doubt. Good Lord. I knew today was going to be really good. I didn't know where all we'd go. We got to finish up. I got one more question for you. So, River City Service, that's you. That's what you do. You take care of commercial properties, do just about anything. How long have you been doing that now?
Well, first of all, I've got to tell you guys that River City Service started with this guy right here. And anytime that I have a question about something business related, I call him, and he answers, and always has well thought out answers that sometimes I'm not even ready for. But
Sorry.
they're always helpful. You're always helpful. They're
Yeah.
always helpful, and that's who this guy is. He's
I
always
appreciate
trying to
that.
help people, and
I appreciate that.
yeah. But that's where River City came from. I bought it from you.
Yeah.
You had it set up perfectly, and then I have slowly picked up accounts through the years, and good accounts that I can get yearly contracts on, and it's I built it slowly, but the way that I want it to go.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way I am comfortable doing it. I kind of like the fact that it's relatively small.
Yeah.
I like the fact that I have pretty much can make my own schedule, and it's growing slowly, but at the way I want it to grow.
Yeah.
And I kind of, not that I would turn down any business, but I'm almost at a place to where I can be selective.
Yeah.
I don't have to drive 2 hours to go mow a yard for $25.
Yeah.
I don't have to do that,
Right.
So, and it's nice to be in a place like that to where, you can wait out for a better opportunity.
Yeah.
I like that. It's comforting.
Yeah. But you're committed. Like
Oh,
that's what I believe that's why you've still found success in this, because you're committed. Man, you're so disciplined that you're not going to miss something. You're going to get it. You're going to make sure when you show up on a property that it's done correctly, whatever it might be that you're supposed to do. And the beauty in that is that the people that you're working for know that. Like, they've got complete trust in you. And you've gained that over time. But they've got your trust, and you do exactly what you're supposed to do. And I think that's what's built that business. The growth that you've gotten has been growth that you've retained.
Exactly.
You haven't swapped anything out. It's pretty much, you've still got the customers that I had. You still got those customers. You still got those properties. And I mean, that's something to really build on. You did have a good foundation when you came into that business. It was a good It wasn't on the second floor yet. It was a good foundation. But you've took it further. And your commitment, your work ethic, and your dedication is what's done it.
I think, one of the easiest things in life that to me that gains people's trust is just being there, doing what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
I'm 45 years old, and I have learned that just people that say they're going to do something and actually do it is a very small percentage.
Yeah.
To me, that blows my mind, because that's one of the easiest things you can do.
Yeah. That's the only way you know to do it.
Yeah, if I tell you I'm going to be here at 1 o'clock today, I'm going to be here at 12:50.
Yeah.
And to me, that's easy. That is so easy to do. And I think that's the first step, just doing what you say you're going to do. And then the next step is actually doing a good job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's, to me, that's so easy.
Yeah.
That's easy.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe, just people appreciate honesty, don't they?
Oh, yeah. And that's a good thing for people just to take in, is to know that, hey, if I do this, if I show up on time, just show up on time, I'm going to have a job. If I do the best job I can do while I'm there, I'm going to make more money. And I'm going to retain my job. And it all builds off of that. But I think that is the first step. And maybe, I'm not sure where it gets lost, but it's one of the easiest things to do.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't cost you anything. And, everybody gets that going at first, the motivation, just, being motivated, excited and all that. But when that stuff wears out, your discipline is what takes care of you. That's what keeps you moving. And showing up when you're supposed to show up, doing what you're supposed to do, the very simple task will take you a whole lot further than what people ever give it credit for.
Oh, absolutely.
They really will.
Absolutely. It's, I'm blessed. I really am blessed. I'm living, right now. I wake up happy every day.
Yeah.
You know, I know what
That's
it's
what we
like to.
want.
Oh man, to work odd jobs and kind of struggle and struggle
Yeah.
and struggle. And I'm just appreciative. To be honest with you,
Yeah.
I'm so appreciative of what I've got
Yeah.
that it's motivation enough just to keep doing that every day,
Yeah.
just to
Yeah.
retain it. And I'm happy, I'm joyful most of the time.
Yeah.
But man, I am. I'm blessed. I really am.
Yeah, no doubt. Man, I'm super proud of you for what you've done. No doubt. Guys, I told you today we would go through a lot of stuff. We have hit a lot of points. And Casey, thanks for sharing your stories with us.
Man, I appreciate
I'm
it.
so thankful that you came by and shared who Casey Fowler is.
Well, I
So,
appreciate it, buddy. I hope I didn't sound like a Rossville hillbilly.
oh no, we'll be just fine. Guys, thanks for tuning in. The reason we do these shows is just to share our lives with you. And we hope you find something positive through that today and you keep living right.